Mr. Browder, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate this opportunity. And first of all, I would like to ask you about this terrible situation in the penal colony in Russia with Alexei Navalny. Who is responsible, in your opinion?
It's pretty obvious that this was a political assassination ordered by Vladimir Putin against his main and only political rival, Alexei Navalny. Vladimir Putin has a long history of killing political opponents, investigative journalists, and other people who stand in his way. He's tried killing Alexei Navalny before and didn't succeed. And there's absolutely no uncertainty in my mind that Vladimir Putin ordered this assassination.
So what should be an answer to Russian government and Vladimir Putin personally from the civilized society, I would say? You are the one who is fighting successfully for the, for the punishment of people connected to the murder of Sergei Magnitsky, your colleague. This time, what should be the answer?
Well, I think that simultaneous to this is a conversation that's been going on for 2 years about how to support Ukraine in their efforts to fight off this Russian invasion. And as part of that conversation, one of the most important things is that there's $300 billion of Putin's foreign exchange reserves that are frozen in the West. And it would seem to me that the most appropriate short-term response, other than individual sanctions, is to confiscate the $300 billion and say to Putin, this murder just cost you $300 billion. Putin needs to understand that he does something like this, and there's going to be an outrageous and huge reaction. Just sanctioning individuals at this point is probably not enough. I think that it's really important that Putin understands that you kill Alexei Navalny and you pay $300 billion. That's a proper response.
As I understand, there are some kind of a confusion around this idea of confiscating this $300 billion because it would be a precedent. They think it may be a dangerous precedent. What would be your answer to that? Because, legally, it's not appropriate, if it's the right word to use.
Well, there's lots of precedents of countries paying reparations for damage that they've caused during wars. Iraq paid reparations to Kuwait. Germany paid reparations to the Western Allies after the fall of the Second World War, after the fall of Germany. The only difference between what I'm suggesting now and what's happened in many times in history is that we're talking about doing it while the war is actually still going on, not waiting for the war to end. And I would argue that there's nothing lawlessness about this. Putin has caused, based on estimates I've read, up to $1 trillion of damage to the country of Ukraine, to the people of Ukraine. And I don't understand how any reasonable person could argue that he shouldn't pay for that. And so, of course, there may need to be new legislation passed in Western countries to work through any legal ambiguities. But at the same time, it's obvious that if Putin, kills Ukrainians, destroys Ukrainian cities, that he should pay for it. There's no other alternative.
So there have been rumors and even statements about the list of Navali Act. It's going to be very similar to the Magnitsky Act that you have actually lobbied successfully in Washington, and then a lot of other countries have implemented the same Magnitsky Act in their countries. And I was wondering, do you support this idea of the list named by Alexei Navalny, and how this list should look like? Who should be there? How many people? How many names? Do you work on it maybe, or something about it?
Well, so the problem is that if we were talking about this, when Biden said back in 2021 that there would be huge consequences for Putin, he was saying that before the war started in Ukraine. And since the war has started, the amount of sanctions that have been issued against Putin, against his cronies, against the oligarchs, against the companies has been endless and appropriate. The problem is that what can you do at this point, which would be really punishing to Putin? And it feels to me like just adding more names to a list doesn't punish Putin. I mean, sure, let's add those names, no problem. But it seems to me that the real thing you need to do is hit Putin where he cares, which is he cares about money, and specifically this 300 billion, and that would actually get his attention, and that would be a deterrent for him to kill other important political prisoners. And so I think it's really important that it goes beyond just naming low-level or even medium-level individuals. I think this needs to go really to something that Putin cares about.
Mr. Browder, you have mentioned other political prisoners. What can be done, considering your connections with high-level politicians in the West, let's say so? What can be done to save these people? Because Vladimir Karamurza, Ilya Yashin, Alexei Navalny, and Lilia Chanisheva, and many, many more, they are facing the same threat, as we understand.
Yeah, that was the first thing that came into my mind after the shock of Alexei Navalny's murder, was that there's a lot more of these people that could be killed, including some close friends of mine. It seems to me that we're now at a point where the West has to do something which was done during the Soviet times. There was these Bridge of Spies prisoner swap, where we identify Russian prisoners that are held, but Russian spies that are held in the West. And we trade them out for these individuals you've just named: Vladimir Karamurza, Ilya Yashin, Alexei Goranov, etc. I think that we need to do that to save these people from being killed. As unpalatable as a prisoner swap is in terms of releasing Russian criminals, I think we need to do everything we can to save the lives of these people who are the hopes and prayers of Russians for a free society.
Is there anything going on in this connection? I mean, do you know that there are some steps that are being taken, or is just a consideration theoretically?
Well, I'm campaigning for that. Whether my campaign works or not, I don't know. But I'm trying to convince foreign leaders that they need to take these individuals seriously. They need to save the lives of, now that Navalny has been killed, we need to save the lives of Karamurza, Yashin, Goranov, and others.
Do they hear you, Mr. Browder? What's the reaction?
Yeah, I was at the Munich Security Conference last weekend. I met with a number of foreign ministers, and they all heard me, and they all, I think, were highly sympathetic. And then the key is to figure out how this could actually be performed in real life. Who swap who for who, and who does Putin want, and how long is the list, and how long is the list of Russian political prisoners, and would he agree to it? And none of these things we know, but I think that is now time to do this. And like we did during the Soviet times with Nathan Sharansky and Vladimir Bukovsky, it's time for the West to save the lives of the other political prisoners.
The last thing I wanted to ask you about is there are upcoming so-called elections in Russia, the presidential elections, and Vladimir Putin would be, no doubt, re-elected again. So do you think that these people who you talk to, the foreign ministers, the presidents, the prime ministers, they will call him a president of Russian Federation after this? Because Yulia Navalny is calling to take this legitimation from Kremlin, to say no to this person, that the killer cannot be a president of Russia. And millions of Russians do not support this. So is there a chance that there would be some consequences for him personally and for his status of the leader of the state of Russia?
Well, I completely agree with you. We shouldn't call this an election. That's an insult to the concept of elections. I mean, Putin has either killed, imprisoned, or exiled anybody who stands up against him. So it's not an election. It's not a competition of ideas. It's not a competition of just to say, what is the will of the Russian people. So it's not a legitimate election for sure, and certainly isn't legitimate after he murdered Alexei Navalny. And I would fully support Yulia Navalnya's call to delegitimize Putin. He's not a real president. He's a fake president, a dictator who who has basically hijacked the power in Russia for his own personal financial gain and the gain of other people around him. And so I'm fully in support of that. And Putin has long ago lost his legitimacy when he started this war, abducting children, being indicted by the International Criminal Court. He's a criminal now. He's not a head of state, and whatever gloss he tries to put on this so-called election should not be respected by anybody.
Thank you so much, Mr. Browder. I really appreciate this opportunity and hope to see you again on TV Rain.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.